Hey there, hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk to you about why you don't need manual mode. Now, okay, that might have been a little bit of a stretch. Manual mode's awesome, but not for everything. Today I want to talk to you about why aperture priority mode is so valuable. First of all, let's talk about what aperture priority mode is. Aperture priority is one of the shooting modes on your camera, and the shooting modes are the modes you can select that is going to determine how your camera functions, how it shoots, and then what settings you can change. We're all familiar with manual mode. Manual is full control over all your settings, your aperture, your shutter speed, your ISO, and everything else. Manual mode gives you full, unbridled control, and that's awesome. It's really useful for a lot of things. But I think aperture priority can really be a much better option depending on your scenario. So let's talk about what aperture priority does. Aperture priority gives you the ability to change and select your aperture as you see fit for the scene, but you don't have to worry about changing your shutter speed or your ISO. The camera's gonna automatically detect your environment and give you an exposure using your shutter speed and ISO that helps you get a balanced exposure. So it's gonna do it automatically. It's gonna do it for you. It's going to adjust your shutter speed and adjust your ISO for you. All you have to worry about is adjusting your aperture. You can take this a step further. On most newer cameras, you can set an upper and lower boundary for your shutter speed and ISO so that it doesn't ever dip below this number or go above this number. That can be really helpful if you want to always have a shutter speed that's going to catch motion. You don't want to go below, 1/320th of a second or something. You can set that barrier. Or you've got decent light and so you don't ever want to go higher than 2000 ISO or something like that. Those boundaries can really be helpful for determining exactly where you want to be in your aperture priority mode. There are two main reasons that I think aperture priority can be so valuable for certain scenarios. The first reason being it speeds up your ability to take a picture. You don't have to worry so much about making sure you're nailing all three of these different settings and balancing them well to get a good image. You just have to worry about one. You have to worry about your aperture, the most stylistic of the three. The aperture setting controls your depth of field. It controls how much of your image is going to be in focus from foreground to background. And this, out of all three settings, shutter speed, ISO, and your aperture, is the most stylistic of the three. Changing this setting is going to make your image look a certain way. A high f-stop or a high aperture is going to give you a really sharp image, foreground to background. A low or shallower depth of field, a lower aperture, is going to give you a more selected focused area. So behind it's going to be out of focus and in front of it's going to be out of focus. So your aperture really determines the look and feel of your image, and it also largely determines how your viewer's eye is going to scan over the image, where it's going to go first. So there's a lot of things to think about when selecting your aperture, and that's why I think it's important. So I mentioned that aperture priority is good for certain scenarios. Now, what are those scenarios and why is aperture priority good for them? So let's first talk about those scenarios. The two that come to mind initially are going to be wedding photography and street photography. Both of those, they're very similar. In a lot of ways, they're very similar, apart from the wedding is a little bit less random than a street photography shoot is. So I think those two scenarios are very closely related, and I'm sure there are other ones I'm not thinking about, but for the sake of this video, I think those two are the most important and most widely done of the ones where aperture priority would be important. And the reason I think aperture priority would be important is because both of those environments, weddings and street photography, are both high intensity, fast-paced environments. Oftentimes they are high intensity, fast-paced, and you really don't have a large window for getting the shot. Like, for example, if you're shooting a wedding and the bride and groom are going in for their first kiss, you've got maybe 3 seconds. I mean, you've got to be there. If you're not there, you're probably gonna miss it unless they just hang out up there, which I've seen happen plenty of times. But if you aren't ready for it, you're gonna miss it. And so if you're a little bit behind the 8 ball, and you're shooting in manual mode, having to fiddle with all your settings really fast, there's a good chance you miss that, and that's no bueno. You gotta have that picture. That's not good. For street photography, you might see somebody really interesting, somebody with an umbrella or something walking through a frame, and you really gotta have whip over there and take that picture right then, or you're gonna miss it. So if you've got to fiddle with all of these settings to get your exposure right, and to make sure you're not gonna have any motion blur, and to make sure it's not too grainy, all of these things, if you're having to fiddle with all that, there's a chance you're gonna miss that shot. That's why I think aperture priority is so useful. It's because you don't have to worry about 3 settings. You gotta worry about 1. You gotta worry about how shallow you want your depth of field to be, and that's it. Your camera's gonna nail that exposure 9 times out of 10. I've never had my camera mess up an exposure for me in aperture priority mode. If you set those boundaries so it doesn't do some crazy combination of settings, you're gonna be just fine. Aperture priority gives you the ability to get the shot more frequently, and that as a photographer is an invaluable tool. If you're not taking advantage of it, you ought to be, because getting more photos that you would have otherwise missed is crucial. It's amazing. It's incredibly important and so valuable. You want to be getting the shot 100% of the time. Now, we're never going to be able to do that, but aperture priority for certain scenarios gets us closer. If you're not using aperture priority, or you didn't know what it was before this video, I highly encourage you, go put it on. Just experiment with it for a little while. Take it into different scenarios, figure out whether or not you like it. I know some people that they just are more comfortable on manual and they don't really want to try to learn anything new, and that's fine. If you're a wedding photographer, if you are a street photographer, something where you've got a fast-paced, narrow shot window, I would really recommend taking a look at aperture priority mode. There's a couple photos that I've got I can point to and say I would not have gotten if I wasn't in aperture priority. I shoot it in a lot of weddings. I shoot it anytime I'm out doing street photos, or just when I'm just taking photos on vacation. I shoot it when I'm just walking around. I'm shooting in manual mode maybe half of the time. The other half is all aperture priority mode, maybe 49%, and then there's 1% that's bulb, but I don't do that very often. But I shoot aperture priority all the time, and it's saved me in a bunch of cases. I've almost missed shots, and my butt's been saved by aperture priority. Give aperture priority a shot. Before I sort of looked into it, it was a setting I'd never touched before, and I'm so glad that I did. It saved me a bunch, and I am in debt to it for a lot of shots. But if you've got any questions about aperture priority or anything else, please feel free to let me know. I'd love to answer them if I can. I think that's about it. Y'all have a great day, and I'll catch you later.